The shuttle descended through gray clouds and landed on a wide metal platform. Commander Zethric stepped out and looked at the Earth training facility below. It was smaller than he expected. The buildings were simple squares of glass and steel, nothing impressive, nothing that showed power or greatness. He pulled his coat tighter around his thin blue body. Earth was cold and wet. The air smelled strange, full of organic matter and water. His home world was dry and clean. This planet felt dirty to him. A human officer waited at the bottom of the ramp. She wore a simple uniform and held a tablet in her hands. She smiled at him, showing her teeth. Zethric found this gesture disturbing. On his world, showing teeth meant anger or challenge. He had to remind himself that humans did this to show friendliness. "Commander Zethric, welcome to Earth Integration Center 7, the officer said. "I am Lieutenant Park. I will take you to your quarters." Zethric nodded but did not speak. He followed her across the platform and into the main building. Inside, humans walked in every direction. They talked loudly and moved quickly. Some carried food and drinks. Others sat in groups, laughing at things he could not understand. The Valorian Integration Corps had sent Zethric here for one purpose. He was to evaluate humans for roles in galactic society. The galaxy was vast and full of many species. Humans were the newest members. They had only discovered faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. They were like children compared to the ancient Valorian civilization. Zethric believed this assignment was a punishment. He was one of the finest trainers in the Corps. He had evaluated hundreds of species across dozens of worlds. Now they sent him to this wet, cold planet to judge these loud, emotional creatures. It felt like an insult. Lieutenant Park led him to a small room with a window that looked out at green trees. Rain was falling. Water ran down the glass in long lines. "Your first candidate will arrive tomorrow morning," Park said. "Her name is Dr. Maya Chen. She is a xenolinguist. She has already learned 3 alien languages." Zethric made a sound of mild interest. Learning languages was acceptable. It showed some intelligence at least. "There is one more thing," Park continued. She seemed nervous now. "Dr. Chen has a companion animal, a dog. His name is Duke. She brings him everywhere." Zethric turned to look at her. His large black eyes showed no emotion, but inside he felt disgust. A companion animal. She keeps a beast with her at all times. "Dogs are very common companions for humans," Park explained. "They have lived with us for thousands of years. Duke is well-trained and calm. He will not cause problems." "The problem is not the animal's behavior," Zethric said coldly. "The problem is what it shows about your species. You are so emotionally weak that you need lesser creatures for comfort. This is not a good quality for members of galactic society." Park's smile faded. She nodded once and left the room without another word. The next morning, Zethric walked to the evaluation room. It was a large space with white walls and bright lights. Chairs and tables were arranged for different tests. Several other alien trainers were already there. They came from different worlds, but they all shared the same task. They would judge whether humans were ready for the galaxy. The door opened and Dr. Maya Chen walked in. She was a small woman with black hair tied behind her head. Her eyes were dark and intelligent. She wore a simple gray uniform. Behind her walked a large animal. It had brown and black fur, pointed ears, and a long nose. Its mouth was open and its tongue hung out. This was the dog called Duke. Zethric watched as Maya crossed the room. Duke walked beside her, matching her steps perfectly. The dog's eyes moved around the room, looking at everything and everyone. When those eyes found Zethric, they stopped. The dog stared at him for a long moment. Maya stopped in front of Zethric and held out her hand. "Commander Zethric, I am honored to meet you. I have studied the Valorian language for 3 years. I hope we can work well together." She spoke in his own language. Her pronunciation was not perfect, but it was better than he expected. Zethrix did not take her hand. He simply nodded. "We will begin the evaluation now," he said. "The animal will wait outside." Maya's expression changed slightly. "Duke stays with me." This was agreed before the program began. "I do not care what was agreed. This is my evaluation. I decide the rules." Maya did not move. Duke did not move. They both stood there waiting. The other trainers watched with interest. Finally, Maya spoke again. Her voice was calm but firm. "Duke is not just a pet, Commander. He is my partner. We work together. If you want to evaluate me, you must accept him as well." Zethrix felt his anger rise. This human was challenging him in front of everyone. He wanted to refuse. He wanted to send her away immediately. But he had orders. He had to complete the evaluations. "Very well," he said through tight lips. "The animal may stay, but I will note this dependence in my report." The evaluation began. Maya completed language tests, cultural knowledge tests, and diplomatic simulations. She performed well in all of them. She was intelligent and quick. She understood complex ideas and explained them clearly. But Zethrix watched her with Duke. During breaks, she sat with the dog. She shared her food with him. She talked to him in soft words. She touched his fur with gentle hands. This disgusted Zethrix. Here was a woman of obvious intelligence, wasting her time and resources on a beast. She gave it food that she could eat herself. She spoke to it as if it could understand. She treated it as an equal when it was clearly inferior. He made notes in his tablet. Candidate shows unhealthy attachment to companion animal, shares resources inefficiently, displays emotional dependency that may affect professional judgment, recommend further observation. At the end of the day, Maya gathered her things. Duke stood up and stretched his long body. She looked at Zethrix one more time. "Thank you for the opportunity, Commander. I look forward to continuing tomorrow." She left with Duke at her side. Zethrix watched them go. He did not understand these humans. He did not understand their attachments and their emotions, but he would continue to observe. He would find their weaknesses, and he would report everything to the core. The rain continued to fall outside. Zethrix stood at the window and watched the water run down the glass. This assignment would be longer and more difficult than he had thought, but he would complete it. He always completed his missions. The weeks passed slowly at Earth Integration Center 7. The weather changed from rain to sun and back to rain again. Maya arrived every morning at the same time. Duke walked beside her, his paws making soft sounds on the metal floors. Zethrix watched them from his observation window and felt his frustration grow. Maya continued to excel in her evaluations. She learned a fourth alien language in just 2 weeks. She completed diplomatic simulations with near-perfect scores. She understood alien cultures better than most humans he had tested. By all normal measures, she was an excellent candidate. But Zethrix could not accept her. Every time he saw Duke, he felt the same disgust. The dog went everywhere with Maya. It sat beside her during tests. It lay at her feet during meals. It followed her through hallways and waited outside doors. The creature was always there, always watching, always present. Other trainers began to notice the situation. They came to Zethrix with questions and comments. "The human woman is skilled," said Trainer Voss from the Krellian delegation. "But this animal attachment is concerning. We have seen nothing like it in other species." Zethrix nodded with satisfaction. It is a fundamental weakness in their psychology. They cannot function alone. They need these beasts for emotional support. "Perhaps we should recommend against human integration," Voss suggested. "If they are so dependent on lower creatures, how can they handle the pressures of galactic society?" "I am gathering evidence," Zethrix replied. "Soon I will have enough to make that recommendation." The criticism spread through the facility. Other alien trainers began to mock the humans openly. They called them pet keepers and beast lovers. They questioned whether any species that needed animal companions could truly be intelligent. Maya heard these comments. She saw the looks from alien trainers as she walked by, but she said nothing. She continued her work with the same calm focus. Duke stayed at her side, his brown eyes watching everything. Zethrix decided to increase the pressure. He designed new tasks specifically to separate Maya from her dog. He assigned her to evaluation rooms where animals were not permitted. He scheduled tests that would last for many hours, hoping she would leave Duke behind. But Maya refused to abandon her companion. When told that Duke could not enter a room, she requested a different room. When given long tests, she brought Duke with her and made sure he had water and space to rest. She never complained. She never argued. She simply found ways to keep her partner close. This made Zethrix even angrier. He called Maya to his office one afternoon. She arrived with Duke as always. The dog sat beside her chair and looked at Zethrix with steady eyes. "Dr. Chen," Zethrix began, "your performance in evaluations has been acceptable, but your insistence on keeping this animal with you is a serious concern." Maya listened quietly. Her hands rested on her knees. Her face showed no emotion. "Other candidates have not shown this dependency," Zethrix continued. "They work alone. They do not need beasts to help them function. Why do you refuse to do the same?" Maya was silent for a moment. Then she spoke in a calm, clear voice. "Commander, Duke is not a dependency. He is a partner. There is a difference." "Explain this difference." "A dependency is something you need because you are weak without it. A partnership is something you choose because you are stronger together." She looked down at Duke. "Humans and dogs have lived together for 40,000 years. We have evolved to work as a team. He understands me in ways that other humans sometimes cannot, and I understand him." Zethrix made a sound of dismissal. "This is sentimental nonsense. The animal cannot think like you. It cannot reason or plan. It is simply a trained beast that follows commands." "With respect, Commander, you are wrong." Maya's voice remained calm. "Duke does not just follow commands. He makes decisions. He reads situations. He protects me when there is danger and comforts me when there is not. He is not a tool. He is a friend." "Friends are other members of your species. Friends are equals. This creature is neither." Maya smiled slightly. "Perhaps that is where our species differ, Commander. Humans do not believe that friendship requires equality. We believe it requires trust." Zethrix ended the meeting without further comment. He marked his tablet with new notes. "Candidate continues to display irrational attachment. Shows inability to recognize the inferior status of non-sentient creatures. Recommend psychological evaluation." The days continued. Maya worked through every challenge Zethrix created. She passed every test he designed. She answered every question correctly. And through it all, Duke stayed with her. The dog never barked or growled. He never disturbed the evaluations. He simply sat and watched. But Zethrix noticed something strange. Duke watched him more than anything else. Those brown eyes followed his movements across rooms. They studied his gestures and his expressions. It was unsettling. Zethrix had evaluated many species across many worlds. He had faced hostile creatures and dangerous situations, but he had never felt watched like this. The dog seemed to see something in him that others did not see. One evening, Zethrix found himself alone in the observation room. He pulled up Maya's file on his screen and reviewed her scores again. They were excellent. Better than most alien candidates he had evaluated over his long career. If she did not have the dog, he would recommend her without hesitation. She was exactly what the galactic community needed from humanity. Smart, calm, capable, and culturally aware. But the dog changed everything. To Zethrix, the dog represented everything wrong with humans: their emotionality, their attachment to inferior creatures, their inability to stand alone. He closed the file and looked out the window. The sun was setting over the green hills beyond the facility. Orange light spread across the sky. Somewhere in the building, Maya was eating dinner with Duke, sharing her food with the beast as she always did, talking to it as if it could understand. Zethryx shook his head. He would never understand these humans, but he would find a way to prove his point. He would show everyone that this attachment to animals was a weakness that made humans unfit for the galaxy. He began planning the formal evaluation dinner. All the trainers would attend. All the candidates would be there. It would be the perfect opportunity to expose the truth about Maya Chen and her dog. And this time, she would have nowhere to hide. The formal evaluation dinner was held in the largest room of the facility. Long tables filled the space, covered with white cloths and silver plates. Lights hung from the ceiling like small stars. The walls displayed images of different worlds, showing the beauty and power of galactic civilization. Alien trainers from 12 different species sat at the head table. Their bodies came in many shapes and colors. Some had scales, some had feathers, some had skin that glowed with inner light. They represented the most advanced civilizations in known space. Human candidates filled the other tables. They wore their best clothes and spoke in quiet voices. This dinner was important. Their performance here would affect their final evaluations. Everyone knew that the trainers were watching. Maya arrived wearing a simple black dress. Duke walked beside her, his brown and black fur brushed clean. She had tied a small silver collar around his neck for the occasion. They found their assigned seats near the center of the room. Zethryx watched her from the head table. His black eyes showed no emotion, but inside he felt satisfaction. Tonight would be different. Tonight he would reveal the truth about human weakness. The dinner began with speeches from senior trainers. They talked about the importance of integration. They talked about the challenges facing new species in the galactic community. They talked about the qualities that made successful members. A strong member of galactic society must be independent, said Trainer Voss in his deep voice. They must rely on their own abilities. They must not need support from lesser creatures. Maya heard these words. She knew they were meant for her, but she kept her face calm and continued eating. The food was a mix of dishes from different worlds. Some plates held strange shapes and colors that humans had never seen before. Other plates held simple earth food for the human candidates. Maya had chosen a modest meal: white rice, green vegetables, a small piece of chicken. She ate slowly and carefully, using proper manners. Duke lay quietly at her feet, his head resting on his paws. Zethryx stood up from his chair. The room fell silent. Everyone turned to look at the Valorian commander. "I wish to make an observation," Zethryx said. His voice was cold and clear. "I have been watching the human candidates for many weeks. Most of them have shown acceptable qualities, but there is one among them who displays a serious weakness." He turned and pointed directly at Maya. "Dr. Chen brings her animal everywhere. She cannot function without it. Even now, at this formal dinner, the beast lies at her feet like a servant waiting for scraps." Maya's face turned pale. She set down her fork and looked up at Zethryx. "But what disturbs me most," Zethryx continued, "is what she feeds the creature." He walked slowly toward Maya's table. Every eye in the room followed him. "Look at her plate: rice, vegetables, meat, the same food that the animal eats. Dr. Chen cannot even distinguish her own diet from that of a beast." Some of the alien trainers made sounds of agreement. Others whispered to each other. "This is what humans truly are," Zethryx said. His voice grew louder. "They eat the same food as their animals. They sleep in the same spaces. They share their lives with inferior creatures. How can we accept such a species into galactic society?" He stopped directly in front of Maya's table. Duke had raised his head and was watching Zethryx with intense focus. "Perhaps," Zethryx said with a cruel smile, "Dr. Chen should eat from a bowl on the floor. She could sit beside her dog and share his meal. That would be more honest. That would show what she truly is. The room was completely silent. No one moved. No one spoke. Maya's face burned with humiliation. She could feel tears forming in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Her hands gripped the edge of the table so hard that her knuckles turned white. She wanted to speak. She wanted to defend herself and her species, but words would not come. The shame was too heavy. The cruelty of the attack was too sudden and too public. Duke rose slowly to his feet. The movement was quiet but deliberate. His ears stood straight up. His body became tense and still. A low sound began deep in his chest, not quite a growl, something deeper, something older. Zethryx looked down at the dog with contempt. Even now, the beast responds to protect its master, another sign of dependency, another sign of weakness. But Duke did not look at Maya. He looked directly at Zethryx. His brown eyes locked onto the alien commander with an intensity that made Zethryx step back without meaning to. The dog's lips pulled back slightly, showing the edges of white teeth. The low sound in his chest grew louder. "Control your animal," Zethryx commanded. His voice was still confident, but something had changed in his posture. He stood less straight. His hands hung uncertain at his sides. Maya finally found her voice. "Duke," she said softly, just one word. The dog did not look at her. He continued to stare at Zethryx. "I said control it," Zethryx repeated. Now there was a hint of fear in his words. "He is controlled," Maya said. "He has not moved. He has not attacked. He is simply looking at you, Commander, the same way you have been looking at me for weeks." Zethryx felt the weight of that stare. He had faced dangerous creatures on many worlds. He had stood before armed enemies and never flinched, but something about this dog made him feel exposed. It was as if the animal could see through him, as if it understood exactly what kind of person he was. The moment stretched. The room remained frozen. Everyone watched and waited. Then Duke did something that no one expected. He did not bark. He did not attack. He simply took one step forward. Just one step. But that one step changed everything. Zethryx moved backward. His foot caught on a chair leg and he stumbled. He had to grab the table to keep from falling. The great Valorian commander, trainer of countless species, feared across a dozen worlds, had been pushed back by a single step from an Earth dog. And everyone in the room had seen it. Duke remained standing. His eyes never left Zethryx. The low sound continued in his chest like distant thunder. Maya stood up from her chair. She placed one hand gently on Duke's head. "We will leave now," she said quietly. "Thank you for the dinner, Commander." She walked toward the door. Duke moved with her, staying between her and Zethryx the entire way. His head turned to keep his eyes on the alien until they passed through the doorway and disappeared. The room remained silent for a long moment after they left. Then the whispers began. The whispers continued through the night. Alien trainers gathered in small groups, discussing what they had witnessed. Human candidates talked quietly in their rooms, wondering what would happen next. But no one could stop thinking about the moment when Commander Zethryx had stepped backward from a dog. The next morning, Zethryx arrived at the evaluation room determined to regain control. He would dismiss the incident as nothing important. He would continue his work as if nothing had changed. But Maya and Duke were already there, waiting. Maya sat in her usual chair with Duke beside her. She looked calm and rested. Duke looked at Zethryx with the same steady eyes as before. "We should continue the evaluations," Maya said. Her voice was polite but firm. "I believe we have more tests scheduled." Zethryx felt his anger rise. This human should be ashamed. She should be hiding after last night's incident. Instead, she sat there as if she had won something. "There will be no more tests today," Zethryx said coldly. "Your behavior last night was unacceptable. Your animal threatened a member of the training corps." Duke did not threaten anyone, Maya replied. He stood up, he took one step, that is all. He showed aggression, he showed his teeth. He showed restraint. Maya's eyes met Zethrix's directly. If Duke wanted to hurt you, Commander, you would know it. What you saw was not aggression, it was protection. Protection from what? I was speaking. You were attacking, not with weapons but with words. Duke understood that even if you did not. Zethrix opened his mouth to respond, but the door opened behind him. Trainer Voss entered, followed by several other alien observers. They took seats around the room without speaking. We wish to observe today's session, Voss said. There has been much discussion about last night's events. We want to understand what happened. Zethrix felt trapped. He could not refuse fellow trainers. He could not continue attacking Maya with so many witnesses. He had to find another way. Very well, he said. Dr. Chen, please take your position for the next evaluation. Maya stood and walked to the center of the room. Duke followed her and sat by her side. The observers watched with intense interest. Zethrix began a standard diplomatic simulation. He played the role of a hostile alien representative. Maya had to negotiate a trade agreement while he tried to confuse and mislead her. But something was different today. Every time Zethrix tried to pressure Maya, Duke would shift his position. Not obviously, not aggressively, just a small movement of his body, a turn of his head, a change in his posture. And each time Zethrix found himself reacting. He would lose his train of thought. He would hesitate before speaking. He would move his hands nervously. The observers noticed everything. After an hour, Zethrix ended the simulation in frustration. Maya had succeeded in every task. She had remained calm under pressure. She had seen through all his tricks. This is meaningless, Zethrix declared. The animal is interfering with the evaluation. How? Asked Trainer Voss. The dog has not made a sound. It has not left Dr. Chen's side. It has done nothing but sit and watch. It watches me, it distracts me. A trained evaluator should not be distracted by a sitting animal, Voss observed. Perhaps the distraction comes from within yourself, Commander. The other observers made sounds of agreement. Zethrix felt his control slipping away. He decided to take a direct approach. He walked toward Maya and Duke with purpose in his steps. I will prove that this creature is dangerous, he said. I will show you what it truly is. Duke rose to his feet. His body became alert and focused, but he did not growl. He did not show his teeth. He simply watched. Zethrix kept walking. He wanted to prove that the dog was aggressive. He wanted Duke to attack so he could call for the animal's removal. But Duke did something unexpected. Instead of waiting for Zethrix to approach, he began to move. He circled around Maya, placing himself between her and the commander. Then he started walking toward Zethrix. Not charging, not attacking, walking, steady and slow. Zethrix stopped. The dog continued to advance. Without thinking, Zethrix stepped backward. Duke stopped. Zethrix tried to step forward again. Duke immediately took another step toward him. Zethrix stepped backward. Duke stopped. This pattern repeated across the entire room. Every time Zethrix tried to advance, Duke moved to block him. Every time Zethrix retreated, Duke waited. The dog was not attacking. He was controlling. The observers watched in amazement. They had seen many creatures from many worlds. They had studied predators and prey. They had analyzed hunting behaviors and defensive strategies, but they had never seen anything like this. Duke was hurting the commander, moving him exactly where he wanted him to go, using position and presence instead of force. It was a display of tactical intelligence that none of them had expected from an Earth animal. Finally, Zethrix found himself backed against the far wall. Duke stood in the center of the room, blocking any path forward. The dog had not barked once. He had not bitten. He had not even raised his voice. He had simply used movement and presence to completely dominate the space. Maya walked forward and stood beside her partner. She placed one hand on his head. "He is not attacking you, Commander," she said. Her voice was calm and clear. "He is hurting you. This is what dogs do. They control movement. They manage groups. They protect their partners. He is showing you what 40,000 years of partnership looks like." Trainer Voss stood from his seat. His large eyes were wide with new understanding. "This is remarkable," he said. "The animal is not acting on instinct. It is making tactical decisions. It is reading the commander's movements and responding appropriately." "Dogs were bred to work with humans," Maya explained. "They were our partners in hunting, our guards in the night, our helpers with livestock. Over thousands of generations, we developed a bond unlike any other in nature. They learned to read us. We learned to trust them." She looked around at the alien observers. "Duke is not my pet. He is not my servant. He is not a sign of weakness. He is my partner. He has skills that I do not have. He sees things that I cannot see. Together we are more than either of us alone. That is not dependency. That is cooperation." Duke sat down at her side. His eyes remained on Zethryx, but his body relaxed. The demonstration was over. Zethryx stood against the wall, breathing hard. His careful control had been destroyed. His authority had been challenged in front of everyone, and he had no idea how to respond. The observers began talking among themselves. Their voices were excited and curious. They asked Maya questions about dogs and human history. They wanted to know more about this partnership that had developed over thousands of years. For the first time, they were looking at humans differently. Not as primitive newcomers, not as emotional weaklings who needed animals for comfort, but as a species that had achieved something remarkable. They had formed a true partnership with another intelligent creature. They had built a bond of trust and cooperation that enhanced both species. And perhaps, the observers realized, that was exactly the kind of ability the galaxy needed. Zethryx remained against the wall, forgotten by everyone, including Duke, who had stopped watching him entirely. The formal review took place 3 days after the incident in the evaluation room. Representatives from 7 galactic councils gathered to examine the footage. They watched everything. The dinner where Zethryx humiliated Maya. The evaluation where Duke herded the commander across the room. The moment when Maya explained 40,000 years of partnership. They watched these recordings many times. They discussed them for hours. Commander Zethryx sat in a small room nearby, waiting for the decision. He had not slept well since the incident. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Duke watching him. Those brown eyes that seemed to understand everything. He had spent his career judging other species. He had found weaknesses in thousands of candidates. He had rejected countless individuals for reasons large and small. Now he was the one being judged. The door opened. Trainer Voss entered and stood before him. "The council has reached a decision," Voss said. His voice was formal and cold. "Commander Zethryx, your conduct during this assignment has been found unacceptable. You publicly humiliated a candidate without proper cause. You allowed personal prejudice to affect your professional judgment. You have brought shame upon the Valorian Integration Corps." Zethryx said nothing. There was nothing to say. "You are being reassigned immediately," Voss continued. "You will spend the next 3 years at a resource station in the outer systems. There will be no promotions. There will be no recognition. You will learn what it means to be overlooked and dismissed." The punishment was severe. Resource stations were cold, lonely places at the edges of known space. Few aliens lived there, fewer visited. It was a form of exile. "Do you have anything to say?" Voss asked. Zethryx looked up. For a moment he considered arguing. He considered defending himself. But then he remembered Duke's eyes, the calm certainty in them, the complete lack of fear. "No," he said quietly, "I have nothing to say." Voss left without another word. Zethrix would depart that evening, alone and in silence. At the same time, in another part of the facility, Maya received very different news. She sat in a bright room with large windows. Sunlight streamed across the floor. Duke lay beside her chair, his head resting on his paws. He looked peaceful and content. 3 senior galactic representatives sat across from her. They were among the highest officials in the integration program. Their presence meant something important. Dr. Chen, began the lead representative, a tall being with silver skin. We have reviewed your evaluation. We have also studied the incident with Commander Zethrix in great detail. Maya nodded and waited. We have learned something important from watching you and your companion, something that we overlooked before. The representative paused, choosing words carefully. We believed that attachment to other creatures was a sign of weakness. We thought that independent species were stronger than those who formed bonds. Duke's ears moved slightly at the sound of the representative's voice. We were wrong. Maya felt her heart jump. She had not expected those words. The bond between humans and dogs is not weakness, the representative continued. It is evidence of an extraordinary ability. Your species learned to form deep connections with another intelligent creature. You developed trust over thousands of years. You created a partnership that enhances both species. The representative leaned forward. This is exactly what the galactic community needs. We have hundreds of species that struggle to work together. We have conflicts that last for centuries because no one trusts anyone else. But humans have proven that different species can form lasting bonds. You have 40,000 years of evidence. Maya reached down and touched Duke's head. He lifted his eyes to look at her. We want to offer you a position, the representative said. A special role that has never existed before. We are creating a first contact team that will approach new species discovered at the edges of the galaxy. We want you and Duke to be part of that team. Why us? Maya asked. Because you demonstrate what is possible. When a new species sees you working together with a creature so different from yourself, they will understand that cooperation is possible. You will be living proof that bonds can form across the boundaries of species. Maya thought about this for a long moment. The offer was beyond anything she had imagined. She had hoped to earn a simple translation position somewhere in the galactic community. Now they were asking her to help welcome new species into civilization. Duke and I would be honored, she said finally. The representatives smiled. They stood and offered their hands in the human gesture of agreement. Maya shook each one. As they left, Duke rose and stretched his long body. He walked to Maya and pressed his nose against her hand. We did it, she whispered to him. We actually did it. Duke's tail wagged slowly. He understood. He always understood. 1 week later, Maya stood on the boarding platform of a sleek starship. It was silver and white, designed for long journeys into unknown space. The crew was a mix of species from across the galaxy. They looked at Maya and Duke with curiosity and respect. A young Valorian cadet approached them nervously. She was barely more than a child by her species standards. Her blue skin was pale and her black eyes were wide. Dr. Chen, she said in a soft voice, may I ask you something? Of course. The cadet looked at Duke, then back at Maya. My people have always believed that needing others is weakness. Commander Zethrix taught us this, but watching you and your companion, I wonder if we were wrong. I wonder if there is something we are missing. Maya knelt down so she was at the cadet's level. Duke sat beside her, watching the young alien with gentle eyes. Forming bonds is not easy, Maya said. It takes time. It takes patience. It takes the courage to trust someone even when you are not sure they will trust you back. Can your species teach mine? The cadet asked. Can you show us how to form such bonds? Maya smiled. She looked at Duke, then back at the cadet. It took humanity 40,000 years to build what Duke and I have. We made many mistakes along the way. We are still learning." She reached out and gently touched the cadet's arm. "But yes, we can give you a head start." The cadet's eyes brightened. She thanked Maya and hurried back to her duties, her steps lighter than before. Maya stood and walked toward the ship with Duke at her side. The stars waited beyond the atmosphere, countless worlds they had never seen. Somewhere out there were species that had never known trust, species that lived in isolation and fear. Maya and Duke would show them another way. As the ship lifted off the platform and rose into the sky, Maya looked out the window at the Earth below. The planet grew smaller and smaller until it was just a blue dot in the darkness. She thought about Zethrix, probably already on his way to that cold station at the edge of space. She did not hate him. She did not even feel angry anymore. He had been wrong about humans and dogs. He had been wrong about partnerships and bonds, but his cruelty had led to this moment. Duke put his head on her lap and looked up at her with those brown eyes that saw everything. "Ready?" she asked him. His tail thumped against the floor. He was always ready. Together they flew toward the stars. The galaxy had many species. It had many conflicts and many misunderstandings. But now it also had something new. It had proof that different creatures could work together. It had evidence that trust was possible. It had a woman and her dog, ready to show the universe what partnership truly meant. And that made all the difference.